welcome you to tonight's debate for First Selectman of Preston. Preston will assuredly have a new First Selectman come 2020, and it's been a long time since you could say that for sure. Tonight's debate is sponsored by the Day newspaper and the League of Women Voters of Southeastern Connecticut. We'd like to thank Superintendent Dr. Seitsinger and Principal Ivy Davis Tomzuk for the use of the building, as well as the Board of Education. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for the help they provide by providing the timekeepers and helping collect some great questions from our audience. And I'd like to thank you for turning it out. It's been a while since we've been here for a debate in Preston, but we always find a very involved electorate. We always get a good turnout. I think it's appropriate before we get started. I'd like to recognize the man who's served the town for 24 years now as the First Selectman, who will be entering into a well-deserved retirement. So, Mr. Congdon, Bob Congdon, if you could stand up for a second. I try to think back before Bob Congdon was being First Selectman, and my memory's not that good anymore. So a brief description of the rules for our debate. The candidates will be opening with 60-second opening statements. Then we'll go to questions, and there'll be an exchange back and forth. The candidate getting a question will have a minute to respond. The opponent then gets 90 seconds to respond as well and to rebut what they heard from their opponent, and then back to the candidate who took the question for 30 seconds, and then we will move on to the next question. So I'd like to introduce the candidates for First Selectman. They're the star of the show tonight. To the audience's right, the Democratic candidate, Sandra Allyn-Gauthier. And to your audience left, the Republican candidate, Gregory Moran. I think that's all the business before we get to the debate. So with that, we will begin with the 90-second opening statements, and by flip of the coin, to go first is Sandra Allyn-Gauthier.
Good evening. I love and care about our town of Preston. I have lived here for over 25 years with my family, and all sides of my family go back even longer than that in Preston and the surrounding community. I have the qualifications to serve our town. I have over 25 years of banking, finance, investment, and management experience, including institutional advancement and strategic initiatives. I have my MBA and a series of investment licenses. I have served on the Board of Education, Board of Finance, Zoning Board of Appeals, and the original startup of the Ethics Commission. For over the past year, I've done as much homework as possible, going to as many PRA, Connecticut municipality meetings, and BOS meetings. I would develop a strategic plan with the input of the board, community, and employees, because I feel that that's very important. I am ready to serve and lead this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moran, your opening statement, 90 seconds.
Good evening. My name is Greg Moran Sr. Many of you may know me. I was born and raised in Preston. I have lived here for 52 years. I'm a lifetime member of the Pocatonic Fire Department, where I've been active for 34 years. I have coached youth sports since the 90s, starting with my son and now my grandson. I was also involved with the Boy Scouts and currently serve as an auxiliary member of the Preston VFW. My family owned and operated Moran Service Center, a well-known local business since the 70s, which become part of the heart of Preston. My three main goals as first selectman: public safety, fiscal responsibility, and restoring confidence and trust in the town of Preston. I believe our selectmen should always reflect honesty, transparency, and a strong work ethic. These are my core values. My hope for Preston is to build upon our strengths, which are the people, including parents, children, and our seniors. I would like to close this saying that, yes, I do not have a political background, but this is my town, and I have and always will have the best interest at heart for every one of you in the town of Preston. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this point, I'm going to ask the audience to hold applause till we get to the end, and we can congratulate our candidates at the end of the debate. But just so we get as many questions in during the hour, and just to make it a fair debate, if we could try to withhold applause during the question portion of tonight's event. So the first question goes to Ms. Allyn-Gauthier, and you have 60 seconds to begin this debate on this question. And so basically, I've been asked to ask the candidates, why do you want to be the first selectman of Preston? What's motivating you?
So I always feel that giving back to your community and having a meaningful impact is important. I've done that throughout my 25 years of living here, and I want to make a difference. I want to work with the people, for the people. In the end, if we don't have people, we don't have our community, and that's why I want to be the first selectman. And I feel like my experience and my background, my educational background, will be an asset to the town.
Thank you, Ms. Moran. So, why do you want to be the first selectman of Preston?
The purpose of being first selectman in the town of Preston for myself is, like I said in my opening statement, I'm a lifetime resident. I love the town. I remember doing, certain things as a child, being in this gym, riding my bike to school, playing activities with the sports, and I feel I can just give back everything to the townspeople that I believe in for the town. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything further on that one? By the rules, you could have additional comment if you so choose.
Yes, my daughter grew up through the public school system, so I know how important it is to have an education, so I would have that as one of my goals as well, to make sure that we look at things cost effectively, but also make sure that they still get a good, strong education.
All right, thank you. Okay, the next question goes to Ms. Moran. If elected, what are your top 2 or 3 priorities when you enter office on day 1? And you get 60 seconds to respond.
All right. First thing I would have a staff meeting and meet and greet any town employee. And I just want to be able to make myself notice to people and just start a new life with, helping everybody in this town.
There we go. How much time does he have left? If we kind of where he dropped, 30. Could you give kind of, but sort of what would be your policy priorities? If you could kind of share 1 or 2 policy priorities.
Oh, policy?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. All right. Yeah, I want to be in charge of looking over everything. And, I want to help out the PRA as of getting all the information that I can. And, work with the, Board of Education just to find out exactly, where we're looking for.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Allyn-Gauthier, again, the question was, if elected, what are your top 2 or 3 priorities when you enter office on day 1?
My top priorities are interwoven. The first one is economic diversity, especially with the Preston Riverwalk potentially coming on board. We need to have a long-range plan for that so that we can control our growth. We need to make sure that our emergency services, our infrastructure, our educational systems, how is that all going to be impacted? We need to look at our people, how we want our community to form, what our priorities are. I would want to involve the boards, the community, and the employees in that process. And I would want to make sure that we look at all the people in all the ages and stages, because everybody has different needs, and how are we serving our younger, middle, and older population. So economic diversity coupled with the people would be my top priorities.
Okay, Mr. Moran, you have another 30 seconds on this question. Again, about top priorities you want to address when you enter office.
Yeah, definitely the top priorities would be to meet with the Public Safety Committee. You know, we need the best police, ambulance, and fire for our townspeople. So that's definitely going to be a priority. And definitely go back to, you know, working to get the state hospital property up and going. That's going to bring in a lot of revenue. So that's definitely going to be a priority.
All right, thank you. Our next question begins with Ms. Allyn-Gauthier, and it has to do with the Norwich Hospital property. Preston is closer than ever to seeing the former Norwich Hospital property develop, but impediments remain, including completing the cleanup. I would like to hear what, if elected, do you see as the biggest issue. Excuse me, I'm trying to try this again. The question is, how big of an issue do you think the development of that property will be for your administration?
I believe that my strategic initiative and corporate experience would make me a great candidate to, you know, see that through if it's not done before Bob leaves. We're in the 9th inning. I think it's very important that the state, the tribe, and the town continue to negotiate. We've all worked so hard to come this far. We need to just get it done and do whatever it takes to get it done to have a positive resolution. We have 393 acres of prime real estate, and I think it would be a shame to let it fall through at this point in time. We all have to partner together. We're definitely in a better place than where we were at the beginning of it, because previously we had a lot of contamination and dilapidated buildings. So overall, the PRA's done a good job. They've raised $24 million. 19 million of that is from the state. So I think we're still in a good place. It's just a matter that we need to negotiate and see it through and have it finalized.
Okay, Ms. Moran, you get 90 seconds to respond to what you heard and to answer the question yourself. I kind of botched it, but basically the question, given how close Preston is now to seeing the potential development of Norwich Hospital property, how big of an issue do you anticipate this to be for your administration if elected?
All right, let's see. It's definitely a project that we need to address. I know the PRA is doing a great job with it, and we need them to keep forward on it and need, you know, the backs of the townspeople. And I'm going to be right there. I'm going to be the, you know, the eyes, the ears for the townspeople on it, and I will be, you know, open to any suggestions of, you know, talking to the PRA about it. You know, it's going to bring in a lot of revenue, and we need to go forward on this, and I say really make this work and make it happen for the town of Preston.
And Ms. Allyn-Gauthier, you can respond further. You have another 30 seconds before we move to another question.
Well, I think that, you know, we do need to see it through. We have 11 million in escrow, which is tied to development as long as the tribe develops more than 200 million. If it does less than that, then the town would still get the 11 million as long as it goes through. But that's the hurdle, is we need to get it to go through so that everybody can get up and running and see everything come to fruition and see that revenue and that construction start.
And Mr. Moran, next question goes to you, and I'm going to kind of explore the Norwich Hospital issue further. I got some specific questions about it. Um, I was asked whether the candidates would support development east of Route 12, or should it be restricted to the riverside side of the property? So, Mr. Moran, you could take a stab at that one. You had this question.
All right, could you repeat that, please?
Yeah, the questioner wanted to know whether the candidates would support development east of Route 12, or should the development be restricted to the riverside side of the property, the Thames Riverside of Route 12?
Well, I think the biggest goal right now is let's do our long-term plan and just stick to where we're at right now and get that developed, finished, and then move on. I don't think if we would continue more on it that we would get as much done and as much revenue sooner than later.
Ms. Allyn-Gauthier, do you understand? Do you need the question repeated, or do you understand the question? Okay. You have 90 seconds.
As far as the conceptual map goes, it's a master plan that the tribe and the PRA and the town have negotiated. And so if there's any changes to that at all, then it does have to go back to the PRA and back to a town meeting. So I think that that's all a good thing. I think to the degree that we can contain the development as much as possible, that's a positive for us. That's not to say that eventually it wouldn't expand further, but I think that if we can control the rate of growth and determine how it's going to impact us going forward, to make sure that we can sustain that and not have it negatively impact our community, I think those are all things that we have to look at. And again, it would be a strategic plan based on strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Get the community input, get the boards involved, get the PRA guidance that has been so strong along the way, and see where it takes us.
And Mr. Moran, you get another 30 seconds if you choose on that one.
Yeah, the PRA, they're doing a great job. They're strong, and I just think let them. It's their decision. Let them roll with it. I would back them up 100% on whatever decisions that they make.
All right, next question, and we'll do one more on the Norwich Hospital property. Got quite a few. I'm trying to cover as much ground on them as I can. And this begins with Ms. Allyn-Gauthier. Do you as a candidate have any concerns about the current entertainment, recreational, sports, and residential resort that's proposed by Mohegan Gaming and Entertainment? Imagine you've seen the plans, you've read about them. Any concerns about what's being proposed?
I think overall the tribe has done a really good job containing traffic. You don't sit at the same light twice, so I think that that's always a good thing. So I think that we have to continue to be a strong partner with them to make sure that no negative impacts do affect the town, and continue to work with them. But again, overall, I think that they've done a good job with their infrastructure and their traffic. So I think that the positives outweigh the negatives, and just like anything, if there are negatives, you address them as they come, and so then, mountains don't, molehills don't turn into mountains, so to speak.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Moran, you get up to 90 seconds. Again, the question was, do you have any concerns about the entertainment, recreational, sports, and residential resort currently proposed by Mohegan Gaming and Entertainment for that site?
Yeah, I don't really have anything against it. I think whatever the PRA and the townspeople have chosen and agreed on, that's their decision, that's your decision. So I think whatever, is proposed, that will be good. I mean, anything down the road, it'd come back to the townspeople, and the PRA would discuss it. So I think that's about it.
And Ms. Allyn-Gauthier, you want to take you get another 30 seconds on this exchange.
So, again, I think they've done a good job, the PRA and the tribe, and I think that as our community changes, we need to make our priorities. If things are affecting us negatively, what can we do to counteract that, to make sure that the things that we love and care about in Preston stay as much the same as they can.
All right, thank you. I'm going to move on to some public safety questions I've received either tonight or through email. Mr. Moran, you get to go first on this one. What should future police coverage look like for Preston? Should there be a joint agreement with the police force in an adjoining town, the continued use of resident troopers, or some other plan? And Mr. Moran, you get the first shot at that police question.
All right, first of all, the state of Connecticut, the Connecticut State Police, they do a fabulous job in our town. I've been to a lot of accidents with the fire department. They're always there. I've worked with them towing the cars. They're always there. There's always a trooper around. So, that would have to totally be up to the townspeople on decision on, getting rid of them. But they do a terrific job.
Ms. Allyn-Gauthier, do you need the question again? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So the townspeople definitely support the resident state trooper, 2 resident state troopers. They've demonstrated that at public hearings and at town meetings, and they do a good job. We are concerned about having 24/7 coverage, especially with Preston Riverwalk on the horizon for development. That can potentially impact the services that we need. I know that the Emergency Services Advisory Committee has looked at both possibly partnering with Ledyard and with Norwich. Top step for the resident state trooper program is about $400,000. If we looked at going with Ledyard or Norwich, it would be up to $650,000 for those startup costs, and it would take them a year out in order to have them be ready. So I think, again, that's part of the long-term strategic plan. I think right now the resident state trooper program serves us well and is more cost-effective. But again, I would look at the resident state troopers and the Emergency Services Advisory Committee and work with the townspeople for guidance on that decision.
Mr. Moran, you get another 30 seconds on the question of what might happen with the future of the police coverage.
Yeah, so I would definitely, meet with the the safety committee. Sorry about that. I just can't say enough for the state police. And even if we don't have a resident trooper on, there's always one close by. We have 2 casinos, and they're always close by to us. So I would definitely just sit down with the public safety committee and, talk it out and just hear from the townspeople on how they feel.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Allyn-Gauthier gets this next question, another public safety related question. A questioner asked concerning firefighting and EMT service, whether the candidates support the addition of paid firefighters that we saw recently, and additionally what ideas they have going forward to assure adequate fire protection for the residents.
Public safety is, of course, paramount and very important. If you have an emergency, you definitely want somebody to be there. Chief Casey gave numerous presentations over the past year to talk about missed calls, and that's not really acceptable. So we need to make sure that we're providing that coverage. And he has also said that the volunteers contribute a lot and he partners with them, which is very important. But we do need to look at that, because if volunteers are decreasing, not just for Preston, but the surrounding area and nationwide, that's going to make more paid people. Unless we can look at our recruiting efforts and our incentive programs and find a way to increase the volunteers, then you're going to be forced to go to more paid. Now, the good news is that since the per diem has been implemented, we have done better. We're filling more shifts. We're not missing as many calls either. Thank you.
Mr. Moran?
It is true that the volunteers throughout the United States, it's getting tough to do. You know, it's throughout the United States, it's just not our town. And I will talk with Public Safety and Chief Casey and through the townspeople, get this worked out on, you know, what it's going to cost for paid people, how many shifts, how many per shift, because all three, fire, ambulance, and police, are the most important to the townspeople of Preston.
And you get another 30 seconds on the topic.
I will say that there's a first select person down in Darien, and Darien's different, but we could look at it. She's had success in getting volunteers through their post-53, partnering with high schools. We could look at our designated high schools to see if that's something. Also, I know that Basra recently looked at their incentive for volunteers, and they give them a tax break based on the number of calls that they actively respond to. So that's something that we could look at as well.
All right, thank you. And then, Mr. Moran, we had a specific question from an audience member, whether the candidates would support the construction of a town-owned emergency services building centrally located and staffed by both paid and the remaining volunteers. So, you know, rather than the current situation is a time for a centrally located emergency services building. Thoughts?
I definitely agree that public safety is number one, but it's to try to keep our mill rate and our taxes at where we're at right now. I think the cost of a new building compared to how other towns have done theirs, it would definitely make a big increase in our tax rate.
Your response?
I think that you would have to look at what benefits you would get from consolidating, you know, do a cost-benefit analysis, work with the Emergency Services Advisory Committee and Chief Casey, Russ Holland, and others to see if that's feasible and if there are advantages to doing that. Cost would always be a factor, but it wouldn't get built overnight. So perhaps, you know, if it's 2 or 3 years down the road and it's part of your strategic plan because that makes sense, and you're diversifying your revenue sources, you have more money coming in from the Preston Riverwalk because that's come to fruition, then I think we might be in a better place to plan for that.
And Mr. Moran gets another 30 seconds on this one if he so chooses.
Yes, definitely that, you know, with the state hospital property being built up, there would be more revenue. I can definitely foresee a larger building in the center of town. I could see that come to play. That would definitely be the long-term, you know, projection of what we needed to do with that.
All right, thank you. And this is to Ms. Allyn-Gauthier. The candidate who loses the first selectman's race could still qualify for a seat on the Board of Selectmen, depending on the results. The questioner wanted to ask the candidates if they would accept a position as selectman, or are they only interested in the chief executive position of first selectman?
My primary interest is in being first select person. Where I'm employed right now, we have to cross that bridge when we come to it because I work for a banking institution and I have securities licenses. And whenever you have a secondary part-time job, you have to go through legal and compliance to make sure that there are no conflicts of interest. So if I didn't get first, which is obviously what I want, I would have to work with my employer to see if that would be deemed a conflict of interest or not.
Thank you. Mr. Moran, how about you?
I would definitely be involved with being just a selectman. I take being on the board of 3 very serious, something that I really want to do. I'm part of this town. I want to stay part of it, so to be a selectman would make me very happy.
All right, anything else on that one? No. Mr. Moran, I got a question from the audience. I guess you serve on the Board of Tax Appeals? Mr. Moran? All right. Good. Is my card correct? Have you served on the Board of Tax Appeals?
Assessment of Appeals.
Assessment of, yes. Okay, that's right. So the question was, if you're elected, will you treat the residents' concerns in the same manner as your treatment of cases for the Board of Appeals? The questioner claims no explanation of denials and refusing to accept documentation or facts. So they want to know, will your manner be the same, in their opinion, as it is now on the Board of Appeals?
I'm the same person whether if I'm on Assessment of Appeals, Zoning Board of Appeals, or First Selectman. Most of you that know me know who I am, know my values, and I treat everybody how I want to be treated.
Okay. Ms. Allyn-Gauthier, I know it's a question more directed to him, but do you have any comment?
Well, the question doesn't pertain to me, but all I know is, I come from a customer experience background, and even though sometimes you have to say no or you can't do something, you might be able to offer alternatives, or sometimes it's just with the way you say it, not how you say it, so I think your approach is very important as well.
All right, thank you. And I'll give Mr. Moran another minute because it was kind of a two-part question. So the other part of the question, from your experience on that board, did you see any different treatment of raised ranches? The questioner feels in the last revaluation that, in their opinion, raised ranches got a higher valuation than they deserved, and they were wondering what your perception was from your experience on the board.
Yes, the raised ranch issue was definitely a big issue at our meeting. I don't know how to correct that. We have a company that goes around and does their assessments, and we see the people that have a problem with the raised ranches especially. As a board, some of it was really tough decisions. I know a lot of people weren't happy. We try our best. We have people that we have to answer to also, as of just, we can't make our own rules. Thank you.
Ms. Allyn-Gauthier, any thoughts on that? I'll give you a minute if you...
Well, I would just investigate with vision appraisals why it seemed to be off, and then talk to Millie Parringer, the assessment person, to find out if there's a discrepancy, why is it that way? Is it an unfair discrepancy? And make sure that you correct it if it's an unfair discrepancy.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Allyn-Gauthier, you go next. What do you think the town of Preston should do with the former Pocatonic School property on Schoolhouse Road? I guess the school has been closed for some number of years. And the questioners wonder if you had any ideas concerning that property.
Well, I think right now, because of the challenges we've had in getting a budget passed, I don't think that, that's going to happen in the next year or two. I think that if Preston Riverwalk comes on board and we start getting some revenues, or we just diversify our economic base in other ways down the Route 2 corridor, then we could look at something. I know that a community center is a lot of things that a lot of people have talked about that they would like to see. That's close to the community park. Would that work? Or would it be better off being down at the community park? So, but that would be one thought. The other thought would be, if the town hall is outgrowing its space, do we look at it some there as well?
Mr. Moran, any ideas for the former Pocatonic School property?
That's prime land. I would like to see something done there for the townspeople. Not sure really, what would place there, but, like Sandra said, that, the town hall people have been talking about that, about needing a new one, so we could always, go to a town meeting and let's talk about it as a town, as a one.
All right, Ms. Allyn-Gauthier, you got another 30 seconds under the rules.
Well, I think that we have to evaluate all of our needs as part of that long-term strategic plan, and through that process, it might uncover some additional needs or uses that we could use that property for.
All right, thank you. Next question begins with Mr. Moran. What do you plan to do to improve town roads? I think I get this in most every town. What do you plan to do to improve town roads, and how will you finance these much-needed improvements, in the opinion of the questioner, Mr. Moran?
Yes, I talked to a lot of townspeople, and that is definitely one of the subjects that comes up. I have talked to Bob Boyd, who's in charge of the roads, and we talked about a little bit of pricing on what it costs to re-asphalt them. I would definitely like to put that into my long-term plan and get some of our seriously bad roads fixed. And I think we could do it. We're not a big town, we have a lot of road, but for a long-term plan, I definitely think we can improve our roads.
Ms. Allyn-Gauthier?
Yes, I've been hearing, as I've gone out and talked to many of you, that roads is definitely a concern. So I would look at all of the roads in town, prioritize which ones are in need of the most repair, make those the priority first, then look at the entire map, come up with a maintenance plan where you rotate, and then you're continually rotating once you've identified your priorities, unless there's a safety issue where something else comes up. And then if you just continue that plan and continue rotating, all of the roads eventually would be taken care of and be finished. Again, it's got to be part of the budget, it's got to get passed, and the explanation of this is needed in order to improve our roads. So this component of the budget is part of the overall budget, part of the increase, and we need to make sure that people understand that if you want the roads fixed, that's part of the budget, and that needs to be included.
Ms. Moran, you get another 30 seconds on this exchange about the roads here in Preston.
I think we should definitely look toward long-term plan for the roads, because some of them are in really bad shape. You know, it could be a safety factor for, driving an inexperienced teenage driver, lose control on it. So I definitely would like to fix some of our roads.
Thank you. So Ms. Allyn-Gauthier, next question to you, and the question was, if elected, what your plans would be to do with the Director of Public Works position. Mr. Congdon did double duty as well as being Chief Executive. He did the duties of Director of Public Works, and the question wants to know what our candidates would plan. Would they continue that tradition? Would they hire a director? You get the first shot at that.
Well, I think the role of the select person is definitely changing, especially with Preston Riverwalk potentially coming on board. And I think as part of the long-term strategic plan, we need to look at all of the roles and responsibilities, not just for public works, but throughout the town. Make sure that we have current job descriptions, what the roles and responsibilities are, whether it's through retirement or attrition. Perhaps there could be a consolidation of jobs between the road foreman and the public works director. I would still oversee everything. I would still make sure that if everybody has a problem, that would go through me. So I would still manage it, but that would be something that I would look at.
Mr. Moran, how would you handle that situation?
Considering my background, my experiences, for everything I've done, I think I could be an asset to helping out with the Public Works Department. If the townspeople felt that, we wouldn't need that position or step up Mr. Boyd, I would be all for that also. But I think I have the experience to help out the Public Works Department.
Just to clarify, so when you say, it sounds, just to clarify, so it sounds like, Sandra, you would not continue that responsibility. You would be hiring a Public Works Director?
I wouldn't necessarily be hiring a public works director. I would look at through retirement or attrition if maybe those positions could be combined. In the meantime, I would continue to serve in that capacity until we looked at it in its entirety and see what was best for the plan.
I got you. And Mr. Moran, if you said you would, given your experience, you could help out with Public Works, would you be helping out a director you would hire, or you know, what do you foresee with that situation?
Well, I feel if the townspeople wants to keep that position, then I feel that I would stay there, and you know, I would be an asset to them. You know,
Okay.
with mechanical ability and you know, just general life stuff that I've done.
All right, and I know I throw our timekeepers off here with with that, but we'll get back to the 60, 90, 30 with the next question, and that's to Ms. Allyn-Gauthier, and it's kind of a straightforward question. We may have touched on some of the issues, but the questioner wants to know what each of the candidates consider to be Preston's biggest challenge, and what is your plan to tackle it?
I think the biggest challenge recently has been the passing of the budget. It's taken 3 referendums this last go-around, and I think that part of the challenge is finding a mill rate that's palatable to the taxpayers. I think we have to look at all 3 components of that, because basically you need to either increase revenues, you need to decrease expenses, or use surplus, or use a combination of it. So we need to look at that and why it takes so many times to get that passed. We need to talk to our residents, we need to educate them, we need to find out what it is that needs to be done to make that process go smoother and work to the best of our ability to do that.
Mr. Moran, so what do you consider Preston's biggest challenge, and what is your plan to tackle it?
I would definitely say the budget. We have a hard time passing the first time. And I think that's something that, you know, we all have to work on. And, you know, the budget, we can make a big change with the budget when the state hospital property goes through, you know, and that's going to help the budget out, and we can just, we got to work together on the budget and keep it going.
And Ms. Allyn-Gauthier, you got another 30 seconds if you want to elaborate further.
We do need to diversify our revenue sources, and hopefully Preston Riverwalk and some other economic development will take care of that. In the meantime, we should look at our debt service, and you know, it's relatively the same until 5 years out, but if we could start giving back to the non-recurring capital, that might help us as well. So there's different strategies we can look at to make the budget work differently.
All right, Mr. Moran, next question to you. I know the town's kind of waiting on what could be a game changer with Norwich Hospital development, but over the years it's also been discussed about the potential for commercial development along Route 2. You've had a business on Route 2. Do you see that as a possibility for expanding the tax base? Mr. Moran, you could stop.
Yes, definitely commercial development would help out the town. We do have a new building going up now that hopefully will definitely impact on the budget. We don't want to over-commercialize, though. I think if we can keep in control and keep, you know, the economy, and work on it, you know, year to year on how many businesses that we want to let in, what size of the businesses, you know, not really go, you know, crazy is what I'm saying. We got to keep our hometown our hometown.
Ms. Allyn-Gauthier, we always, when I'm in Preston, there's always talk potential for commercial development on Route 2, and the questioner wants to see what your opinion is that potential.
I know that the Route 2 corridor was part of the recent zoning regulations changes, and there's 24 different uses that are allowed there. So I think that's definitely something to look at, is how can we get more businesses attracted to the Route 2 corridor. Small businesses are the backbone of our communities and our countries. So wherever we can help small businesses or incubate small businesses, and there's a lot of different agencies that can help us with that, so that we could have a friendly business climate and yet still have it adhere to our regulations and our ordinances.
And you get the next question if you want to just hang on to the mic. Mr. Moran mentioned balancing development with protecting the character of the town. And I'd like to hear, both candidates discuss that challenge as we see the potential for Norwich Hospital development. Is there a concern about, the rural farm character of Preston being kind of challenged, and how might you manage that if you're a chief executive? I'll give you the first shot on discussing that.
Well, I think as we've discussed, it's important to protect what we love about Preston, so we need to prioritize what is important to us, and that would be part of the strategic plan. Foxwoods and Mohegan Sun have been here a long time. Foxwoods even opened an outlet. Overall, like I said, they have done a good job containing traffic, and because they're set at the two ends of us, I think that that's helpful to us. But other things that we can do is make sure that we do continue to have the dialogue so that if things do start negatively impacting us, that we can work with them on that, and just make sure that we're doing everything we can to still keep what we love about Preston.
Mr. Moran, your thoughts on this balancing development with protecting the character of Preston?
The character of our town of Preston needs to stay, a small town, and definitely, like I said, I'm for businesses. I'm for building it up a little bit, but I think with the control of the townspeople, we can keep the town how we all want it, how we're all going to be here for a long time.
So Gauthier, you get another 30 seconds on the topic if you
The other thing we can look at doing is our open space and working with our conservation committee to make sure that, we are open to their ideas and suggestions and maintaining open space and conservation through those efforts as well.
Thank you. Mr. Moran, you get the next question. Do you see any opportunities for collaboration and shared resources here in the town of Preston?
Shared resources is a very good idea. It can save the town, several dollars. There's a lot of different things that we could do for the shared, and I would definitely be willing to sit down with the other selectmen and townspeople and see what we can work out to save the town some money, because that's our number one goal, is save the town money.
Any ideas for opportunities for collaboration and shared resources here in Preston?
I think being cost effective is important, both internally and externally. And I know we've made some strides in that with our emergency dispatch system, working with the superintendent on health insurance and liability insurance. And I think there's also room through SCOG. They did a sharing opportunity study, and they suggested other areas to look at, such as animal control, planning, purchasing, information technology, human resources. There's a variety of other options there. So again, we would have to look strategically and decide what we like and what we don't like. But until you've explored those options, you don't know. So that would be my plan.
Ms. Moran, anything further on the topic? 30 seconds.
We as a town, that's what we look forward to. With the shared services, we can put some stuff together, the dog warden part of it, or, work with other towns and see what we can do.
Okay, Ms. Allyn-Gauthier, next question. Do you see an importance in the town working with and helping the Preston Historical Society? And is history an important priority for you?
History is important, and it's a positive attribute to our community, and it can also bring people into Preston because they want to see the heritage and they want to see the building. So I think that that's always a positive. The Long Society Meeting House that is renovated, which is definitely a positive attribute. I would like to work with the Preston Historical Society. I think even for education for our town government, they would be an asset to helping us, because I think as people move here, they don't really know how the town government works, so that I think that that could be beneficial as well.
Mr. Moran, do you see the potential for the town working and helping the Preston Historical Society, and how important is history to you?
I would really hope that we don't lose the Historical Society. The history of this town, I've been reading older books through the years that have been passed down, and there's just a lot of history in this town, and it's amazing just to be able to open a book and learn about a lot of the stuff that has happened in this town. I'm proud of it, so I would do whatever I can to help out the Historical Society.
And you get another 30 seconds if anything to add.
So I think however we can help them, we definitely should look at that, whether, you know, they need help with events or they need help with membership, whatever we can do. Another idea is to have a volunteer drive, because I know throughout our town volunteerism is important. So that's another avenue that we could look at as well.
I know our candidates touched on at the beginning in their opening statements about their background and their town involvement, but I had a specific question from an audience member. I think we're beginning with Mr. Moran on this one. What's been the level of your civic involvement? How many selectmen meetings have you attended in the last few years? So if you could discuss that, Mr. Moran.
To be honest with you, I've only started to meet with the selectmen meetings when I decided to run. I can't say I've been to them before, but I have been active with the other meetings that I go to for the other two ones that I belong to. But I have been trying to go to all the selectmen meetings, the PRA meetings. A couple of them had gotten canceled, but no, to be honest with you, I've done my other boards and have my own life as a Preston resident. So, but being a selectman, I will have to be at all of them, and I will continue to go to the other boards just to know what's going on in our town.
Thank you.
So over the past year, I've been going to Board of Selectmen meetings, PRA meetings, Connecticut Council of Municipality, the annual event, and some workshops, because I think it's important to know the issues facing the community as well as where we're at in the various stages. So I've done as much homework as possible. I've also met with the first selectman numerous times over the past year. I've met with the superintendent. I've met with Sean Nugent, the PRA chair, because I feel that all of those things are important. Serving on the Board of Finance, I also see many reports coming through our meetings as well. And I've also been on prior boards, Board of Education, Zoning Board of Appeals, and the original startup of the Ethics Commission. So I think that all of that is very important to be civically involved and to learn as much about the job that you're going to hopefully be taking.
All right. Anything further on that one, Mr. Moran?
No, I think I'm all set.
Okay. With that, we're going to move on to our final closing statements from our candidates. We covered just about all the questions that came in from the audience by the coin flip, and they have 60 seconds. We begin with the first closing statement is from Sandra Allyn-Gauthier.
Thank you all for coming, and to our moderator, Paul Chenard, Greg Moran, and Bob Condon for all his years of service. I am prepared and qualified to do this job. When you vote, I ask you to carefully consider the qualifications of the first select person that you feel our town needs in moving forward. I'm ready to apply my professional and educational background. I've been on Board of Finance and Board of Education. I've done everything I can over the past year to hit the ground running. I want to be your advocate to our state leaders and agencies. I want to use all the resources available to us. It's a pivotal time in our history. There's leadership changes. There's Preston Riverwalk, and I am ready to have the expertise and the desire to lead this town, and I want to move forward with community in mind. I want to hear your thoughts along the way, and you'll be very involved in the process because it's our town and our journey.
Well, thank you. And Ms. Moran, you get last words, 60 seconds.
I would like to thank everybody for coming out, everyone for supporting our town. It's a very big decision that you guys have to make. I'm proud to be running alongside Sandra. She's a good person. I'm very proud of this town. I have been since I was a child. I've done a lot of things in this town. I've met a lot of great people. As a child, as an adult, I see a lot of people through the garage. I've seen a lot of people at restaurants that are in town. I just love the town, and I will do my best, whatever it takes, and I will listen. I will listen, and I will answer. I will be there for you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Now we can get a round of applause for our candidates willing to step up and do this very difficult thing. Thanks, everyone, for being such a respectful audience, and don't forget to vote on November 5th. Good night.